look at some scenarios. We're going to look at 4 scenarios. The first is, how do we evaluate changes that affect our business plans? Number 2, do we accept or reject a special order that kind of comes in out of the blue? The third is outsourcing. This is what we sometimes call make or buy. This is a common scenario these days. Of course, there's a lot of outsourcing happening. And fourth is, do you sell an intermediate product or keep manufacturing processes going and process further to a later stage or a completed product? First one is, we're going to look at evaluating sales and marketing tactics, and this is an example of changes in business plans. ConnectCo manufactures flash drives, and they sell them 4,000 units per month at a price of $20 per flash drive. And management is considering 3 choices that reflect sales and marketing strategy. Number 1 is engage in advertising by adding $1,000 to the advertising budget and spending it. And the impact would be, we'd sell 300 more units if we got more people to hear about our product. Number 2 is, let's increase price. Let's increase price by $1 per unit. However, we know that in general, you raise price, you may lose sales. In this case, we will lose 300 units of sales. Number 3, we decrease the price. So we lower it by $1, and we hope that, again, the price elasticity is such that by lowering price, you sell more units. Here, we'll sell 500 units more, with the direct labor for the last 200 increasing by $1, since we will incur overtime in order to make those additional units. Here are some data points that will be useful or may be useful. Variable costs, direct of $3 per unit. These are all per unit. Direct labor of $4, manufacturing overhead of $2, and selling and administrative costs of $1. On the fixed costs, we have manufacturing overhead of $20,000. Those are things like rent and insurance and security, which do not change regardless of units produced. And selling and administrative, let's call that office rent or office workers that are paid salary, and that's $8,000. We will now go to Excel, and we're going to use this general approach, is that if we focus on differential, we can pick the ones with the desired impact. All right, back to Excel. The next tab over is called Changes. Let's look at the approaches. First, alternative right here is advertisement. We're going to increase ads by 1,000, and we're going to be able to increase sales by 300 units. The criteria we're going to use is, what is our profit that we make? If we agree that this is the relevant factor, how do we determine the net income differences between the alternatives? The answer is, we do a little income statement for each of the approaches. Let's start with a baseline and say, what's our current alternatives or current scenario? How many do we sell in units? Right now, we sell 4,000 units. What is our current pricing for the product? And the current price is $20 per unit. So our revenue right now is, we multiply the units times the price. So we're selling $80,000 in revenue. And our direct labor is here, $3 per unit. So it's $3 times the units. Lock that with F4. And we can now copy it, since they're all in order, of 16,000, 8,000, and just F2 to see that the math is right. F2 is equal to manufacturing overhead per unit of 2 times the number of units, which is 4,000. Okay, we're good. And selling and administrative costs, same thing. Copy one more. 4,000 units times $1 is $4,000. So the total variable equals sum is $40,000, and our fixed costs that we have over here is 20,000 plus 8,000, and so our net income is 40,000 minus 28. So we're currently making $12,000. That sets like a baseline, and we now have 3 potential changes: advertising, raising price, or lowering price. So let's look at little miniature income statements for those 3. Selling, our sales in units will be 4,300. Our sales price did not change. The revenues are the same formula, is number of units times the price. And our direct labor cost is different now, because it is the unit cost of $3 times a larger number of units. F4 to lock it, enter, and let's copy that for all the elements that are variable. Total variable costs equals sum. Fixed costs is same 28,000, and the net income is the revenues minus variable minus fixed, or 15. So far, we're to the good. How much are we to the good? 15,000 minus the base of 12. So we would make $3,000 more if we did some advertising. Let's try the other one. We raise price. In this case, how many do we sell? What was given is we raise price by $1, sales will drop by 300. So we'll say, well, what are we selling now? That's 4,000. It drops by how much? 300. So our sales will now be 3,700. The price is going to be the original price plus $1. So we'll sell for $21. Revenue is the same thing. Units times price, 77,700. Our costs are $3 per unit times now a smaller number of units. F4 to lock, copy it, Control C, shade, enter. And the cost equals sum, open parens, shade, and enter. And our fixed costs, same fixed costs. Our profit is revenue minus variable minus fixed, 12,700. So this is also better than current, but not much better. So we make $700 more. Let's try the third scenario where we reduce price. To remind you, we're going to reduce price by $1 per unit. And the sales will go up by 500, but there's going to be an adjustment in direct labor costs. So we'll have to make an adjustment as we go along. Let's start with what is the unit volume. It's the current 4,000 plus 500 more, sell 4,500. And then the price is going to be 19, which is $20 minus $1. And the sales is, guess what? Units times price. The direct labor costs is going to be a little tricky because it's the base cost plus this little increment for the last 200 units. So let's start with the basic cost of the units, lock it, times the price or the cost for direct labor, $3. And let's, while we're at it, copy it all the way down so we get all the units, knowing that now we can go back to the direct labor and add the shift premium for overtime. So we hit F2, and to that existing calculation we add 200 units times $1 more, because above you can see that direct labor for the last 200 units increases by $1 due to overtime. So that's our adjusted labor cost. And now guess what? Same thing, equals sum, open parens, and shade what we want, close parens, and fixed cost is the same, and profit is equal to revenues minus variable minus fixed. So 12,300. Is it better? Yes, slightly. How much better? $300 better. So of the three alternatives, what we see is this alternative is the best. So this would be what we pick. We would pick the alternative of advertising, which will increase our profit for the month of $3,000. The other two are okay. They're both positive, so they're better than doing the status quo, but not as good as advertising. So that's an example of a framework where we look at what is our decision-making criterion, in this case, profit. Then let's build a small model that helps us estimate the differential in net income if we choose to stay put with our current approach, or options A, B, or C. All right, back to scenarios. The next scenario is, do we accept or reject a special order? The scenario here is that a customer comes to you over the top of everything else you do and offers a special order on a one-time basis. These typically would be at a lower price. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a special order. They'll just buy more product. Usually there is a large volume of units that is dangling in front of you as a temptation. And the company wants to look at how much more money would I make if I were to accept this special order. The tricky part of this, just to know, is that the normal operating expenses of the business are going to happen anyway. It's because you have your normal business. A special order ignores any fixed costs that are associated with running the business because you're going to do it anyway. That's the little hint that we'll do. Let's look at a scenario. Here, a customer offers you to place a special one-time offer for or order for 800 units at a reduced price of $16 per unit. You may recall that we sell normally at 20. Connecto has a production capacity of 4,000 units, and right now we normally manufacture 4,200. So we have additional 800 of capacity. Connectco will save 25% of its variable selling and administrative costs since this customer walked into your office. You don't have to expend any incremental effort to solicit and convince somebody to buy your product. Question: what should you accept this offer? The total cost we're looking at are $16.67. On the surface, if somebody's offering you $16 and your costs are $16.67, you'd say, oh, that's a no-brainer. It's a no, right? Because your costs are greater than your proposed price, but not so fast. Let's do an analysis looking at the relevant costs in this particular case. So the variable costs are the same, 3, 4, 2, 1, respectively, for the 4 elements of variable costs. And the fixed costs are manufacturing of 20 and selling and administrative of 8. We have an average cost of 6.67 for fixed costs. And for variable costs, we have 3 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1, or $10. And that's how we come up with the total of $16.67 per unit sold. And let's go to Excel. On special order, what we see is that on the left, I've carried forward the data so you can see where we got the numbers. On the right, we've set up one alternative as reject, one order as accept. The criterion is which one generates us the most money. Here, let's look at the data. And what we see is if we reject it, there's no change because we're status quo. The capacity is 5,000 and we use 4,200. That's fine. Sales of the product are 4,200 units. That's over here, normally produces. And our price is given at 20. Our direct labor is at 3. And so it's 3, 4, 2, 1. So our total variable costs are 10. Fixed costs, as we see over here, is 6.67 for a total cost of $16.67. So now let's go over here and say if we accept the offer, what is our change? We're adding 800 units and we're going to sell them for $16. Capacity, we're going to use 800 more, but it's okay because we will go up to our capacity but not over. And so the sales in units will be $800. The price per unit is 16. The direct labor cost is the same. The direct material cost is the same. The sales and manufacturing are the same, but we were told that the variable cost for the selling administrative is different because they walked into your office with this. We'll save 25%. Therefore, it's going to be $1 times 0.75, or 25% less. Total variable cost now changed. Variable costs are $9.75. The fixed cost per unit in this case is 0. So this is very, very, very important. So I'll even highlight it. There's nothing there. So our total costs are that plus 0. Total costs are $9.75. The offer is at 16. So on that alone, we can see that we would say yes. But let's say how much money would we make to see if it's worth the trouble. Here I've laid out 2 approaches to illustrate. This is aggregate approach and this is differential approach. Under the differential approach, you say how much would our outcomes change if we're to accept the order. So the sales in units that we would get are additional 800. So let's just go there, 800 units. The price is up here $16. The revenues then would be that times that, or $12,800. The direct labor costs are $3 times the units, which are 800, lock it at 4. And we can copy it since we're consistent here. And note that the selling and administrative, F2 to edit, show that we reflect the drop of 25%. We have total variable costs equals sum, open parens, shade the variable, close parens, enter 7,800, fixed is 0. Net income then is the revenue minus the variable minus the fix, and we get 5,000. So the answer here is 5,000 extra profit, and so the answer is yes. Okay. So we see that if we use a differential approach, we get to an answer very, very quickly. However, we might want to look at, well, how much money do we make overall? The sales, we're going to start with a base case. How much do we sell? Plus 4,200. And what's our price? $20. And what's our revenue? That equals units times price, or 84,000. And direct labor is $3 times the units. Lock it up with an F4. Copy that down for all the variables. And then sum equals sum, that to that, close parens, enter. Then fixed cost equals the 28,000, which is here, $28,000. Net income is revenue minus variable minus fixed. So we make 14,000 now. Well, how much more will we make if we took the special order? Here we could say the total units would be 4,200 plus 800. So we'll make the full 5,000. That's our capacity. Price, we'll just put varies, since it's 20 for base and 16 for other. Okay. Our revenue is going to be exactly what we just said. The base is what we have anyway. That's 84,000 plus we get the differential of 800 times 16. That's 96,800. Our direct labor is the same unit cost times the units. F4 to lock, and copy that only for the ones that don't change. For the one that's differential, we have to be a little careful, because if we accept it, it's our base plus the new rate of 75 cents over here as the selling and admin for the special order times 800. So that's our selling and administrative. Total variable equals sum, open parens, shade, close, enter. And our fix is the same, 28, and so our profit is equal to 49 equals 96 minus 49 minus 28 is 19,000. If we say what's the difference, 19 minus base is 5. So notice we come up with the same answer. And you say, well, why do we bother going through the long way if we do the short way? So the answer is that to make a decision, you can get to the decision very quickly by saying, let's do the differential and say we make $5,000 more. However, for budgeting reasons, if a manager came to you and you're making this decision together, you'd say, okay, go, accept the offer, and let's see what happens. So they do work, and the income is determined for the month, and you say, oh, we made $18,000. And you say, oh, that's great. But you don't really know what would you have made if you did not accept the offer. So the better way to do it is to do the aggregate, because now we have this column right here. This column represents, if we accept it, this is our expectation of how much profit we'd make from accepting the order. So when we're done with all the math and we say, how much do we make this month? The answer should be, we made $19,000. So that's a number we can be more easily accountable for. So if I promise to run the business, do my normal business, plus take the special order, I should make $19,000. Then you say, okay, fine. How much did you make? Oh, I made $18,000. That's not so good. You're off by 1,000, right? So this is actually better in real life because it provides a very clear number to those managing the department of what was the expectation. They both work. From a decision-making standpoint, they're comparable. And from a time standpoint, it actually takes more time for aggregate than differential. The other reason aggregate is better is you can't make a silly mistake by putting a minus instead of a plus, because the signs kind of stay with what you'd expect. That's two approaches getting you to the same answer, with my slight preference for aggregate because to me it's more intuitive, and it, from a practical standpoint, provides an expectation for what would happen after the decision is made. If we look at the special order, there are other considerations too. What we saw is that the relevant revenues from a differential basis are only for the special order, and the costs that are relevant are just the incremental. So that's the shortcut straight to the answer. The other factors to consider is time span. What would happen over the years? If there is a multi-year special order, for example, the customer says, oh, I'll buy 800 more and I want it to last for the next 3 years. That would then impair your capacity utilization for those future years. And you'd only take it if you felt that you didn't have other more productive uses for that capacity going forward. Second is, what would happen if you gave the special order to this customer for $16 and the other customers say, hey, I've been paying you 20, and they say, sell it to me for 16. If you did that, you'd be in big trouble, right? Because you saw that your base cost structure has your costs, including the fixed costs, of $16.67. So if everybody got that price, you'd be losing money. One way to deal with it is make sure they don't find out, but you can't assure that. The other way is to make it a little different. If this customer gives you the order and you use pink plastic instead of black plastic, you could then have a different product. And somebody says, hey, you sold it for 16. You say, oh no, that was pink plastic. It was cheaper for us to get a rejected color from the factory than have to pay for list price on the nicer black plastic. The other is there could be positive effects too. So there may be negatives, but you now have a long-term customer, and that might blossom into more than just 800 units of this product. So there are other considerations, is the point when we're looking at special orders from potentially larger customers.